Okay, very welcome everybody. Today we are going to practice object-oriented programming, and the topic for today is more focus on concept. What does that mean when I say I'm gonna focus on concept and teach you how we are going to create multiple classes under the same project? And then, in addition to what we've practiced last week, remember it was like creating aggregation relationship between the two classes. Remember, I taught you how to create a box class, how to create a label class, and then in between them create aggregation. And aggregation means one class can be used under the private member class of the next class to be able to exchange some information, right? And today, not only I'm going to practice the same aggregation knowledge and information, another example to remind you how to create aggregation. In addition to that, the main focus of today is going to create an additional class. Today we are going to have 3 classes, and then practice how to define inheritance between the classes. I'm going to share my screen, go over the summary of what I'm going to teach you today inside the Visual Studio. First, I'm going to explain it through the lecture slide very quickly. I'm not going to spend too much of time in here. And then right after that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start programming. Therefore, meanwhile, I'm opening this up. Please open your Visual Studio, create a project, maybe call the project or label the project just as main. That's it. Do not give it any weird name for now, or you can call it even lecture 6, since this is going to be your lecture 6. And then let me summarize what we are going to practice today. As I said, I'm gonna just focus on concept. What does that mean? Means I'm going to create 2 classes and call one of them either base or parent will work, because some people they call it base class, or some they call it parent class. If you hear either, that's correct. And then the next one is going to be derived or child. So what does that mean? Means anytime you have a relationship between the 2 class. Means, for example, in here, if this is maybe parent and this is child, then I should say child is a derived class of parent, right? Or if I have the base class to be maybe any name such as what I'm going to do for today, maybe an object or a geometry. If my base class is a geometry and my derived class is a circle, then I should say circle is a child class of geometry. Therefore, I do have some relationship. Means geometry could define only the material or the size, and then under the circle I can give it more detail, like what's the radius, or I can create another one, maybe a cube, and then say cube is also is a child of geometry. But for cube, probably I need width, I need height, and I need length. Therefore, still there is one thing maybe under geometry. Geometry is, let's say I have only one variable like a material, and I'm going to use that same material to create different geometries, such as a cube, such as maybe square base, such as circle or whatever. But all of them are getting the information from that geometry class, like yourself and your parent. You guys, in case you do have some sibling, probably your parent has some gene sharing with you, probably hair color, skin color, even last name. These are something common that can be shared between all the siblings. Therefore, you can define it like your skin color is coming from your parents. If they are colored, your skin color is colored. If they are white, it's white, or so on. Or if you're just looking at any engineering project, like what? Like you are an engineer, you're supposed to design a battery management system for automotive application. Battery has like 3 different aspects of engineering. For battery, you have to look at the control system, which is under electrical engineering. You have to look at the thermal management, which is a part of mechanical engineering. And you have to look at the chemistry of the layer, like positive and negative, or I would say anode and cathode. And that's under chemical engineering. Therefore, you can say I'm going to have a base class called battery or BMS, battery management system. And then I'm having three different child classes, one electrical, one mechanical, one chemical, and all of these are getting information from the base. On the base, probably you are gonna just say what is the maximum voltage for the battery, what is the minimum voltage for the battery, and then under the child you can say, now I'm gonna look at the chemistry, but I'm gonna still consider the sizes from the main. Then I'm gonna look at the control system, but I'm gonna connect it to the same battery size from the main or from the base. And then I'm going to look at the thermal management. For thermal management, also the size is super important, or the shape or the geometry of the battery is super important. Therefore, I'm going to again look at the parent or the base. So it has lots of application. Therefore, it is super important to learn how to create not only aggregation, which we defined it last week, to be able to create inheritance between the classes. That's one thing that we are going to practice today. And of course, there is a template. How do you define the inheritance? Suppose this is your base class. You define it regular as like any other classes. You give it private member, you give it public member. And today also, in addition to private and public, I'm going to introduce protected member, which is another type of member under the class. And then if you are going to build some relationship, such as inheritance, between that class and, pay attention, the other class, this is how you do it. You have to use the class, the new class name. You have to use colon, and then either public or protected is going to be the keyword in here, and then give it the name of the previous class. If the previous class in here is a student, in order to create inheritance between the undergrad and the student, you have to include it in the first line of the next class using colon. This is the template, right? And we are gonna practice it in an example today. Then I'm gonna, as I mentioned, I'm gonna introduce another type of class member called protected. The difference between protected, private, and public. Remember, I said private is only accessible inside that certain class, but public could be accessible out of the class. Now today, if you have protected is a little more restricted than public and a little more freedom than private. So it's in between. Therefore, sometimes you can get access to it out of the class, but in some aspect, you can still have it inside the class. So it's in between. A little bit more limitation than than public, a little bit more freedom than private. That's the difference. So here are a few examples, and we are going to practice them. And I'm going to give you the templates for the exercise, which these are all what I'm going to teach you during the example. So I'm not going through the lecture slide because I'm going to practically do it on the Visual Studio. So I'm going to define three classes. One of them, I'm going to call it geometric object. The other one, I'm going to call it date. The other one, I'm going to call it circle. But before moving to that step, probably you have this in your mind that last week when I was teaching you aggregation, I said if you are looking at some graph or diagram like what I'm having in my screen, in order to understand what's the relationship between the two different classes, pay attention and find the symbol. In there, I had this symbol or the diamond. Anytime you see the diamond between the two classes, simply means the relationship between them is aggregation, right? But anytime you do have a triangle, then the relationship between those two classes, you can see it also in here, is going to be inheritance. So now one triangle is a symbol for inheritance. This diamond is a symbol for aggregation between the two classes. Now, How do I know which class is getting information from the other class? Again, look at the symbols. If the symbol is connected to that certain UML diagram, remember this is a diagram that I taught you in lecture 4. I'm going to go back, which is called Unified Modeling Language, or we call it UML diagram for programming. Remember also I said this is very similar to schematic for electrical engineering. It's a guide for the user or for the engineer to just go ahead, create different classes with those certain information. So I practice it again here in lecture 6. Therefore, this is UML diagram, and this is a template of what I'm gonna do, what I'm gonna follow today and create. This example is this. I'm gonna create a geometric object, and I'm gonna create aggregation between geometric and another class called date. And then simply means this date has aggregation with geometric objects since there is a diamond shape in here. And then I'm gonna get like the circle to inherit, to just have some inheritance relationship between the geometric. Therefore, directly you can see no relationship between date and circle. But since both of them supposed to communicate with geometric objects, somehow they will be able to exchange information, but not directly through the geometric object. Make sense? One question for you might be about this diagram. Look at here, I'm having 3 classes and then I'm having 2 triangle. What does that mean? So far we learned any class that a triangle is connected, that class is a base class. And the other class is receiving information from the base, right? But what if I have 2 triangle? In here simply means class A is a base or parent since the triangle is pointing to that class. Therefore, B is a child for A. And again, I'm having B by itself, having a triangle connected, means B by itself is also a base or a parent, but not for A. It should be a base, based on this diagram, it should be a base for class C, right? So then I would say class C have an inheritance relationship with class B, and class B has one with class A. Simply means I can have multiple classes, one be the base for the another one, and the child of this one could be the base for another class. Make sense what I'm talking about? Right? And then there is no limitation. It's not like, for example, you can have only 3 classes. You can have so many classes based on the project that you are working on it. For example, I just said if you are working on battery management system, you can have 4. One of them be the base, and then, for example, another electrical, another mechanical, chemical, and of course, you can have another computer engineering as well to become. So there is no limitation. Make sense so far? Yeah. Then now we have the flow chart in here. Now we have like the UML diagram. We have a clear plan, and it's time to go practice creating these 3 classes inside Visual Studio. Before I move from here, remember I said I'm going to introduce a new class member called protected. From what I taught you before in previous lecture, if you forgot, go watch the recording from YouTube. And in there I told you, anytime you see plus being added at the beginning of the UML diagram, right in here, first one is always the class name. Second, it could be private or protected. And the third one in here, the plus means these are your public member. Before I had like in here, I had minus. If you have minus, means these members are going to be your private member. If you have hash, means those are protected, right? Hash means they are protected, minus means they are private, and if you have plus means they are public member. So now you have that understanding, right? So then one more time, protected and private and public. Public is a type of, look at here, public is a type that you can, this is the one that I have protected. Public is a type that it is accessible out of the class. Private is a member that is not accessible out of the class. Look at here, for these classes, each of them, they do have their own private, right? But public in here is test, public in here is test, and public in here could be different. So this public is accessible in here too. Therefore, public is accessible. How about protected? Protected has a little bit more restriction than public. Therefore, For example, if I'm going to create protected member between this grade class and in here, then I can just use void. This is a public. This public, I can make it a little limited and in here make it protected. So one function could be public under one class and I can make it protected under the other class. That's the difference. And we are going to practice this one today. So protected is not like private. It's not that much limited. Still, it is accessible inside another class if they do have inheritance, but it is a little bit more restricted than public. Make sense? So all of these public member in here, they could be protected in another class. So now it's time. I'm going to just minimize this. The only thing I want you to remember and pay attention is going to be only just this example. Keep it in mind and we are going to practice it inside Visual Studio. The very first step, which I'm going to start with to remind everybody, is creating a class. Please get busy, get your hand busy, get your mind busy, your eyes busy, everything busy to be able to learn. Click on source, hit add class, and then give it a name. After it is up, then the first class I'm going to create, I'm going to call it date. Hit OK. I'm going to keep a copy of whatever code I'm going to do right in here on the side, as I do always. Some students are a little slower, therefore, I'm going to just try my best to scroll up and down between this even Word document to make sure everyone can follow, or at least you can understand where I am. So I keep that on the side for you. But still I try to have most of the screen for the programming. So what I said, I created a date class. You can see right on the side, I do have it. So I already have the header file and the .cpp file right now. And I always start from header. Why is that? Because first I have to define my class members. If I don't define them, therefore I may not know what's the plan. You have two methods. Either you can go ahead, use pragma once, as you can see on my screen, or on my previous solution, you can see I do sometimes use if and if. Either method will work. So now I'm going to continue with pragma once. And since this is the first one, then I'm going to have hash include. Start with me. Do not stay behind. Do not just watch. Practice. Hash include iOS stream. Add your iOS stream. This is the first one we need. And of course, since I'm planning to use some string, I know that I'm going to use a string. I use hash include a string as well. And then to avoid repeating std, then I'm going to use using namespace std. This is also helping me to avoid repeating it. And it's time to go ahead, define my private and public. I quickly go back. Remember, I'm creating date. So I get the information from here. For dates, based on what I have, I see that I'm having like 3 private member and I'm having multiple public member. I do exactly the same for all private are integer. So I'm going to practice exactly the same thing. So I start with private. Can you hear me, students on the back of the class? Can you hear me because my microphone just turned off? Still you are hearing me? I tried to just change the battery quickly, but I'm not pretty sure if the new batteries are fully charged. I just put them in the charger. Is it better now? Okay, so I'm going to define my private member and then I'm going to define my public right after that. So for private, remember what I had? I had just integer. I do the same. Integer day, month, and year. Again, I get the information from the procedure I was given on the UML diagram. And then public, I had just date. So as soon as I type date, what do you think what I'm gonna do? I expect everybody knows as soon as I type date and then this like parenthesis empty, everybody should know what is this right now. What's this? Any idea? Pardon? Say it. It's a default constructor. How do I know that? Because I'm using the name of the class. As soon as I use the name of the class and I start with the name of class, definitely the plan is defining a constructor, either default or non-default, right? So since I said date, you should be waiting for me to define some constructor. And I'm gonna say, since I left the parentheses empty, definitely this is going to be a default. Then I would say my day is assigned to my month, assigned to year, and I'm gonna set all of them to 0. That's how I can define my default constructor. Then I'll get out of here. Again, I type date, and immediately I'm expecting everyone to know I'm working on another constructor since I used the class name date, right? So now this time I'm gonna give it some detail. I'm working on all those 3 integers that I have. Therefore, this is just a constructor, but it's not default anymore since I do have some argument in here. Now, next time, it's gonna be your job to tell me again if I say date, and then this time, if I say const, pay attention, I want you to answer this one and tell me which kind of constructor is this one. We practiced this last week. Everybody should know it. What type of constructor is line 21? Not you, not you. You know it. You were here in the previous class. Everybody else. Which type of constructor I have in line 21? Remember last week? Copy constructor. Copy constructor. That's why I say pay attention. If you missed the knowledge from last week, I'm going to repeat. And then I'm going to define a function called print. Kids, try to practice with me. Those sitting in the back of the class, I don't see your faces. Then make sure that you learn. So then next, I'm going to practice a string. If I say get, everyone should know what is this one now. Somebody tell me what is this. I'm talking about line 23. What's the name of this line? Someone say it. Yeah? Yeah, say it. No, line 23. What is line 23, kids? Yes. Is it getter or? What is the other name? Figure it out. Yes. Accessor, right? So kids, these are important, especially for your oral presentation, for your oral assessment. Therefore, try to learn. That's why I keep repeating. Now I'm done with my class definition. I'm going to minimize to make sure everyone can see what I've done in here. And then look at here, line 19, line 20, line 21 and 2. They are all underlined green. Simply means I have to go to .cpp and start defining them. Yes, Zidane. Which one? Line 22. What did I? Okay, no, that's a new one. Therefore, it shouldn't give you error, even if you have that, like for example, that like that. It doesn't generate error. It will generate error only if you are using the dates in a different way. Yeah, but since you say get date, it could act like a new name. Yeah, therefore it won't. So now it's time to go ahead and define all of them under the .cpp. So I'm gonna start, make sure that inside the .cpp you already have the hash included header file. If not, add it. One more time, I'm gonna highlight why we use double quotation. Why? For any header file, which is a like local header file and being only available to that certain project, we have to address it through double quotation. But if you have something like iOS stream, a string, or such a, like header files which are a part of the compiler and you have no access to change them and they are available in every single project, those we put them inside those different symbols, but in here we put them inside like, so that's the difference between, these are not random, there is a reason behind. Anytime you have it like this, you have it like double quotation, means that's a local header file only available for this program. So now I'm gonna start with the first constructor. So I have to say date. Remember, it was 3 integers. First one was integer for month, then integer for D stand for date, and then integer for Y stand for year. And then I have to redefine it and say which one means what. Then I have to say day, or I started with month, so I should start with month. Month assigned to M. This is the first one. Then I have day assigned to D, and then I have year assigned to Y. And I'm done. If I go back and validate, this one should be fixed, which it is already done. It is fixed. That's why it's not underlined green anymore. Makes sense so far? Then I have to just go work on line 20, which is my copy constructor. So I'm going to come here. Again, I'm going to say date, colon, date. And then remember, it was const, it was date, and operator, and D. This D is a different D, right? This one is not as date. This one's supposed to be, it's a copy constructor, supposed to be like D stand for date. Do not confuse them. And then right in here, I'm going to say month assigned to. Now I use it because now this is a standing for my class D. Then I have to say D dot month. This is one of them. D dot month semicolon. Then for day, I'm gonna say D dot day semicolon. Then for year, I'm gonna say, this is copy constructor, kids. Copy constructor. That's why I use D dot. That's why I keep, and then for the day, for the year, I have to say D dot year. That's why I keep repeating. That's the difference between overloaded. This one was an overloading constructor. This one is a copy constructor. For copy constructor, you have to address to the actual date class. Now, I'm done with that. I validate and I see even line 20 is fixed. No more underline green. I'm good. I'm safe to move forward. Yes, Lakshmi. Error for a string, make sure that you do have the string hash include the string right at the beginning. Make sure, double check you have hash, otherwise you are gonna have an error. Next, I'm gonna look at what is my next one. It's gonna be my void function, print function. Therefore, I'm gonna come here and I'm gonna say void date colon. It was print, and then it was for the void, it was just constant. Just get out of this one and say const and give it a little more detail right inside here. So for the print, all I want, and pay attention, this is the function which I'm going to redefine it in the other classes. Therefore, this is a brand new knowledge, brand new practice. We can create a function in the first class and we can redefine the same function in the next classes. Means the function is exactly the same, the content of the function. Somehow it's overloading a function, right? I'm going to overload this function over and over, okay? So for this one, I'm going to only say just include created on, and then probably the information is supposed to come from month, and then you may want to have some space and maybe include a slash because you are gonna provide a date. Then that's why I include a slash in here. And then after the month, I'm gonna give it a day. And then again, I'm gonna include some slash, very similar to how we address a date. And then I'm gonna get the year. And then I'm gonna add semicolon. That's it. Means input month, day, and year, and include those slashes in between them just to make it nice. If I go back, if I double check, line 21 is also fixed. All I have left is get data, which is my getter. So I'll go ahead. Is it fixed, Lakshya? Then I'll look into that one for you after I'm done with this. And then for the string, I'm gonna say colon colon. Remember, it was get date. And then I have to keep it constant. Also, you may want to look at your all of your syntaxes, make sure all the syntaxes are included. So then right after that, I'm gonna define my string. For the string, all I want is just return. This one is important. Return, remember how do we, this is going to be my string date. I'm gonna return to underscore a string, okay? I'm gonna return month. And then right after that, I'm gonna return. So since, remember I said I'm gonna include the slash in between them. And then again, I'm gonna include two underscore, whatever the string is for day. And I do the same for year. And then I'm gonna include another slash in here. This slash is only to clean up the screen and understand what you do. I'm gonna just remove the space and make it closer like this. And then at the end, right in here, I'm gonna add again two underscore string. What was the last one? Year. And I'm good to just say semicolon. You may want to just close up the string right in here. I'm gonna just minimize to make sure you can see everything. So now I'm done with my string. So I finished my string. I return all of them, right? And hopefully everybody else did it. If I go back and double check, I see even this one is fixed. At this point, you should see your green check mark. No error, nothing if you did it exactly as I did, okay? So it's time to go ahead, practice aggregation. It's fixed. What was the issue? Is syntax? Oh, okay. Probably the issue was you needed more detail for d.cpp. Yeah, it's good to see that one is fixed. Now, let's go ahead. I'm going to quickly go back to the lecture slide. Remember, I created date. I'm done with dates. That's why I'm going to turn it to red, means we are done with this one. Now we are going to create geometric object, and then we are going to create the aggregation. Pay attention if you forgot how do I define aggregation, because I'm going to repeat it through this example. So that's why I'm going to now go ahead, define another class, call it geometric option. Again, click on source, hit add, click on class, give it the name, call it geometric object. This is the class name for me. Hit OK, and it will give you a header file and a .cpp file. Header file automatically will open always, and then .cpp file, you simply need to activate it. Double click on it, it will open. And always I start from header file because I need to define what my class members are. Another repeating here, you can use either hash pragma once, or you can go ahead and you can use hash if and if and hash define at the end. Definitely you need to close it with hash and if you change pragma once. Pay attention to not to go wrong with that. So since I already created the date class, and the plan is to create aggregation between dates and geometric object, I want you to pay attention. You must add hash include date. If you miss that one, you won't be able to communicate between these two classes. Add that one first. Done? Right after that, one more quick review in here. What do I have? In here, remember I had like protected class members and public. I know it from the UML diagram. So now I'm gonna type in here protected, not private, because that's what the diagram is asking me to practice, okay? And then public These are going to be my members to define them. How many protected I want? This is my geometric object. I'm gonna define a string. Do I need to include hash a string again? Somebody answer this question. Do I have to say hash include a string in here since I'm using a string in Lighton? Or no? Why not?
You already accessed it in your data.
Exactly. I do not need it because I've already defined it right in here. And I've already got access to date.h. Therefore, I do not need to repeat it. Make sense? So then I'm going to look into color. I'm going to look into why do I use bool? If I use bool, what would be the expectation? It's a conditional statement, right? It's a true or false statement. That's a type of data type. And then I'm gonna, look at here. This is the fun part. And then I'm gonna say date. If I say date in here, based on what I taught you last week, if I under the protected say date and then give it any name, I'm gonna call it created. Then what does that mean? This is a great question. Somebody answer this. Someone tell me, when I say date in here, what does that mean? That was the lesson from last week. If you haven't watched the last week, please go watch my recording of last week. That's really, really beneficial. Yes, Lakshmi. No. 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 More detail? Another thought, another idea? Somebody tell me what is line 12? Kids, remember, I'm going to go back to here. What was the plan in here? What I'm supposed to create? What is this? What is this? No, 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 no. This is not pointer. What is this? What is this? Diamond. I just said it. No. Aggregation. Remember last week I told you in order to create, even at the beginning of the class, I mentioned it. Anytime you are going to create aggregation relationship between the two class, you need to use the name of the other class under either protected or private of the other class. And that's exactly what I do. I'm going to create aggregation between geometric object and I'm going to just connect it to date. Therefore, under the protected, I use date and simply means now I'm connecting geometric object with the dates class. And that's one more time, that's how we define aggregation. We use the name of the other class as a data type under protected or private, not public, for the next class. And that way we connect them. We create the aggregation relationship. Make sense? And now I'm going to go ahead and based on whatever inside that UML diagram, I had just some public and my publics in there, it was just geometric object. Now, as soon as I type geometric object, I said it in the previous class. Somebody tell me what's the plan? Even if you have no idea what I'm gonna do, I'm using the class name. Say it.
I forgot, but I know the commands, like the brackets and the
just typing the class name right under the public simply means I'm planning to create a constructor. It could be either default or non-default, but just since I started with the class name means she's gonna create a constructor right now.
Not now. But not now.
Right now.
Oh.
Right now. I'm gonna create a default constructor right in here. Kids, it's really cool. If you follow me, it's like a story. Gradually, you can connect the dots. Even me typing the first maybe word, you can understand. You can read my mind. You can simply read my mind, right? Now, I'm having a plan to create some default constructor. Therefore, I have to give it the constant value right in here. So I'm going to create, let's say it was color, right? So I'm gonna look see how many like protected I have 3. Then I'm gonna address all of them. So I'm gonna say color, and I'm gonna say for the color I cannot make them to be assigned to each other anymore. Why is that? because they do follow different data type. Therefore, color is a string, so I'm going to give it a constant, maybe white. This should be my first one. And then I'm having field. Field is a Boolean, therefore I have only two options. Either it has to be true or it has to be false. I have no other choice. Then I'm gonna say this is maybe false. And then by default is false for me. And then I'm having created. And created, one more time, a good thing in here. Created is not even under geometric. Remember, created is coming from date class. Therefore, I can simply in here add, go get it from date, whatever in date. And this is how I can finish this up with a semicolon. Done. And this is going to be my default constructor using the aggregation relationship. Created is done under date class right in here. I have mentioned how do I create something. Remember, I have mentioned I'm gonna just create it on some date and read it, and that date read it from day, month, year of the date class. Make sense? So now next is going to be, I'm gonna create another public in here because inside that UML diagram I have asked to do so. And that next one in here is going to be again, as soon as I type geometric object, now everybody knows she's going to have a plan to create another constructor. Let's see what that constructor is. I'm going to overload a string, bool, and date. That's it. And remember I said I'm going to have one print function in here, and I'm going to keep overloading this print function or redefining it. I'm going to redefine my void function. But anytime you redefine, still you have to address it under the public of that certain class. Otherwise, you're going to have error. And that's it. Now, it's time to go ahead, just look after 17. And of course, also this one doesn't have underlined green, right? But if you're planning to overload it with a new information, go ahead and define it again under .cpp. But if you do not want to see out something new or print something new, even if you don't define it under .cpp, you are going to be fine, right? Since it is already done, if you wanted to follow exactly what you have done right in here and under this .cpp right in here, then you do not need to redefine it. But I'm planning to redefine it because I want new information. Therefore, follow me. The very first one in here, pay attention. By default, this should be here. But for any reason, if you erased it, make sure that your .h is there. Now it's time to say geometric object. I'm defining my constructor, then geometric object. So I'm defining constructor. And remember, it was a string. A string was for color, so I should say C. And then I had Boolean for the field. Then I should say F. It's not, it's my option. You can just have another variable if you would like to. These are my option. And then except that, what else I did have? I had date. I called that one the variable D. Again, these are my object, or these are my variable. You have your own choice. But since this is learning environment, follow me to make sure that you're going to get the right answer. You can customize them later if you would like to. Then color, I'm going to say this is set to C. Bool, for me, it was just filled. Then I'm going to say filled. It was double L, filled. I said this one, I'm going to say F, and I had date. Except that I had my date, it was created. Then I should say created. And created, it was just D. This is coming from date class. These are my information. Right after that, if I double check, I see that my line 17 is fixed. No more underline green in here. That's a validation that I've done everything properly. All I have right now, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to redefine my void function. Void function was a print function. Therefore, I'm going to say void. Remember, since I'm doing it for geometric, then go ahead and say geometric. So geometric object. This is your void function. And then colon, colon, I'm redefining. Remember, it was print. The name was print. And of course, it was const. It has to be exactly the same. The only thing that it will change is the cout information. I'm going to change the cout information. Therefore, in here, I'm going to cout new information, which is color. And I'm going to say get this one from color. This is NL. And then I'm going to cout my field. And then I'm going to say field, get it from field. Do the same kits. And then NL. And the last one was created. Created is coming from date. Therefore, I do not need to, because I've already done that one right in here. Look at here. I already done the created under the date. Therefore, I don't repeat that one. I just add this color and field in addition to what I've done in created under the date class. Make sense what I'm doing? Are you able to connect the dots? I'm moving back and forth between the classes, between the header file and .cpp with the hope that everyone is following. I know it might be a little challenging. That's normal because these are new information and you are trying to learn and you have to fight with your brain to surrender and help you to learn. Make sense so far? So kids, I'm done with the two classes. So far, I'm going to quickly summarize and then I'm going to give you a break because I'm done with first half of the class. I've taught you how to create aggregation, right, between the two classes, how to overload your constructor, how to redefine your function. And the plan is in the second half of the class, I'm going to teach you how to create another third class. I'm going to give it the name circle. And then based on what I've shown you right in here, my circle is supposed to have inheritance with the geometric object. Means it's supposed to receive information from the geometric object. So I'm going to pause this one right in here, give you a little bit of break, and we will be back with creating inheritance. Welcome back. Let's go create another class and practice inheritance. Very similar to what we've done for creating another two classes. Now I'm going to create another class. I'm going to call it circle. And I'm going to create inheritance between this and geometric, right? And of course, I have to follow in here. I have only one private, since this is minus. I have only one private member. I'm going to maximize. And I've got a couple of public members in here, multiple public members. Of course, I have like some constructor, and then I'm having iOS stream, or let's say iOS stream and OS stream. So these two friends means I'm going to create iOS stream and OS stream. I already shared my screen. Okay, let's go get that part done. Again, click on source, hit add, create a class, give it the name. This time I'm going to create circle. And then give it some time to come up. I'm done. I've got my header file. I click on my .cpp file also. I'll put them just side by side to just move back and forth between them. One more time, plan is creating inheritance. Therefore, the very first thing is hash include With what? With geometric. Therefore, say geometric. Do I have the geometric? Yep. Create your connection to geometric. That's the first thing. Right after that, I'm gonna just start with header file. So I'll do it inside the header file. Okay, inside the header file, create the connection with your geometric. No, that's an option. You can use pragma once, that's your option. There is no rule to use this one or use hash if. So since for the other one, I use pragma once, therefore it's a good time. I'm gonna practice instead of that in here. I'm gonna one more time show you how you use if. It doesn't matter, okay? So now I'm gonna say if and if. And then you have to give it a name. For example, I'm going to say circle underscore h. And then again, I'm going to say hash include. Somebody asked me, can I use another method? Yes, you can use hash and diff. And then again, you have to say right in here, you have to say circle. No, for some reason, it's just because I have zoom on any of these things. Like again, you have to just say circle underscore h. And then the most important part, which may just cause you some error if you forget, is hash and if. If you don't include and if, it will give you error. So the best part in here, this one is hash include circle. So you sorry, this is define, not include. So hash define circle. So this is another replacement for pragma ones. Say if and if, define and end if. Or forget about line 1, forget about line 2 and line 12 and only say pragma ones. Either will work. Make sense? Both of them are completely correct. And then make sure that you do have access to geometric. And it's time, the very important part of this one. It's time to practice inheritance. This is new. In order to create inheritance between the circle class and the geometric, I have to include colon. And then since I'm going to make it public, I do have two options. I can say I want my connection or inheritance to be public. If I use public means I'm going to get access to everything in there. Or I can define it as protected, means I only need access to some of the information in there. But I'm going to say public to get access to everything. Say public, and right after that, create connection with just using the exact same name. That's it. Remember, for the aggregation, I said you have to use the name of the class under either protected or private to create aggregation. I'm just reminding you about the difference between aggregation and the inheritance. But for inheritance, you must use the colon and then either public or protected based on your plan, and then the name of the other class. That's it, and that's the only thing that can help you to create inheritance relationship between the two classes. Now I can say there is a relationship, means I have it like this. Circle is a base for geometric, or I can say geometric is a child or a derived class of this one, right? So there is a relationship between them. Now, I'm going to look at what I have to just define. Based on this one, I have to define private and public. So I have to say private and I have to say public. Private and public. And then go ahead, define them. For private, this is circle. Circle, I only want just double radius. That's my only private member in here. And for the public, some of them supposed to be inheritance, remember? So I'm going to say circle. And again, as soon as I type circle, my expectation is everyone knows what's going on my mind. I don't repeat it. Simply means you are going to just go have radius. I'm gonna assign it to 0, and that's it. So now, someone tell me what is line 15 quickly. What is line 15? Constructor. Which kind of constructor? 100% correct. And then I'm gonna say double. And then I'm gonna say, now I'm gonna start, pay attention, I'm gonna start overloading. Did anyone raise hand? Did anyone raise hand? Okay, so now I'm gonna overload. I'm gonna say double and string and bool. These are what I already had in other classes. And of course, I'm gonna overload also with date and then close it with semicolon. I'm gonna just minimize, everyone can see what I'm doing. I'm gonna do overloading one more time and get more information being included right in here. I'm gonna say again double. I'm gonna just say a string. I'm gonna say bool and integer, integer, integer. I'm gonna add 3 integer. So these are all overloading kids. Okay. And another thing that I'm gonna do right in here. Remember I had one function only. I'm gonna redefine my function. So I'm gonna say void print. This line is gonna be exactly the same, but this time I'm gonna redefine it with different information. So next, I'm gonna practice iOS stream. Pay attention. Also, I've done this one last week. One more time to make it really, really familiar for you. I'm gonna use iOS stream or iOS stream and OS stream. So in order to use iOS stream, I have to say friend, right? And then I have to say iOS stream means input. I'm gonna input an output. iOS stream and operator. And since this is input, kids, pay attention. The operator should be toward your left, since this is input, right? And then remember it's iOS stream, and operator, comma, and I'm gonna get some info from the circle, and then again, and operator, and close it up with your semicolon. Do the same for OS stream with a little bit of, or let's say, minor difference. Friend, OS stream, and operator, and remember, OS stream is output. Therefore, pay attention about the shift. Should be toward your right. Again, OS stream and operator, and the same thing, circle and operator, and finish it up with colon. I'm done with this part. I'm gonna just minimize. You can see everything is done properly. I'm gonna minimize more to see everything at once. And then you can see I'm having like 16, 17, 18, of course 29, since I'm gonna just redefine it, and 23 and 24 to be completed under the .cpp. Let's quickly go there. Pay attention, your circle is already there. And start defining all of those. I'm gonna say circle, colon, circle. This is my first constructor, okay? Then remember my first constructor was only a single double standing for R, standing for the radius. Then simply come here, say radius assigned to R, and that's it. That's the only one. And then I had overloading, therefore I'm gonna go ahead and overload it. Do the same thing, circle, colon, circle, And this time it was more. There are more argument. Then say double. Or again, still for the radius. Then I had string. A string was for the color, so I call it C. And then I had Boolean. Remember, Boolean was for the field. Then I say F. And then what else I had? I had date, D. Now it is important. Pay attention. This part of it, again, it is new. Remember, I said I'm practicing inheritance. That's the difference in here. Since I'm practicing inheritance, I need to go ahead, say colon in here, give it another access to geometric object because many of them are already done under geometric object. Instead of just redefining them, I'm practicing inheritance. I can give it direct access to go get the information from the geometric object class. Like what? Color was there, field was there, and of course date had aggregation with geometric object class. Therefore I can simply say go get the D also from there. Makes sense? I'm gonna minimize, you can see the whole thing. And then write in here, then give it detail. Then inside here start saying what are the rest. It doesn't let me to move this one. So I'm gonna do it. I need in here. So I've done like the geometric and all of them are completed right in there. All I have left for this step is just defining the radius. So I already said go get them from geometric. Now only define radius in here. Assign to R and that's it. Now I'm gonna also again minimize. You can see the whole thing. For the next one, again, overloading circle. I keep overloading only just to give you more practice. Otherwise, the method is exactly the same method. Just to give you more and more practice, I add more details. Therefore, this time I'm gonna again say double. It's the same, double R is a string C. Again, I'm gonna have bool F. These are this parts the same. But remember, next time I gave it integer, integer, and integer. And then I said one of them I wanted to be for month, the other one I wanted for date, and the other one I wanted for year. Again, one more time, I'm gonna practice inheritance. Pay attention. I have to add colon, and then I have to say again, go get it from geometric object, right? And then right after that, remember this time I say again, I'm having like C for color, F for field, and then this part is important. All of these integers, M, D, and Y, these are coming from date, right? Since those are coming from date, I can simply say go get access to date because date is inside the geometric. They do have aggregation. Therefore, I can say go get M, D, and Y from there. Make sense? And I'm gonna open my bracket. So I've done this one more time. I said get the CF just from here and go read the rest from date, right? And then inside here now you can say what is your radius? What is your radius? Very similar to the previous one. And done. Oh, this one is comma. This one is comma. Okay. Everyone done this one? Okay, so I'm going to quickly double check. And you can see all of the constructors are already fixed. Simply means I defined them properly. All I have left is redefining my function and of course my iStream and OStream. We've got a few more steps right in here. For the function, again, I have to say void. Again, since this part is circle, then I have to say circle, colon. Then the name was print. Then I have to say colon, print. And right after that, parentheses. And remember, it was constant. And now all you have to do is just maybe print out different information. Cout. This time I'm gonna just print out the information for my object. So I'm gonna say object info. And then I'm gonna just have and L. That's it. This is going to be my first one. And then since I'm going to get information from, this is going to be redefining, right? So I'm going to get some of the information from the print of the other class. Therefore, I have to say created dot print. Some of the information could come from the other classes. That will help me to not to repeat them. And then semicolon. And then again, remember there is inheritance. Since there is inheritance, I can use that geometric option, which is another class. Some of information also are done under that class, so I can use this and I can just avoid repeating them. And then the very last one, I'm getting like the radius from the same class in here. Radius is going to come from radius under circle. As from radius and then L. Done. And now if I go back, all I have left is my IStream and OStream. I'm gonna add those. For IStream, just type IStream and operator. And remember, it was input. Therefore, shift is toward this way, then IStream. And then right after that again, and operator. Since this is input, I'm going to call it N. Pay attention later. I'm going to use this one as a command to input. Then circle is the class name and operator. And for circle is for class name circle. So I say C. And then right underneath, remember, I had like few information such as month, day, and year. Those are not available in here. Those are available under geometric. Therefore, I have to just redefine them if I want them in here. Now I'm going to say M, standing for input, input month. In this one, I'm practicing just giving it user interaction. After I debug, I can just input new month and day and year and semicolon. There is one extra backslash here. So, and then right after that, again, C dot created, this is coming from the other one, and then date. Also, I have some information such as month, such as day, and year also under the date class. So those also can come from there. Now it's time to see out. Since this is something easy, see out some of the information I ought for the sake of time. I'm gonna just put them down right in here for you. If I could copy this one. And then pay attention. This is super important. Either IStream or OStream, you must return. If you don't return, you are going to be in trouble. So for IStream, return M. Repeat the exact same thing with different information for OStream. OStream and operator. And then, since this is output, it has to be the other direction. OStream and operator. And remember, OStream is output. Then call it out. Then circle and operator. C. Method is the same, but just instead of input, we are practicing output. And then right after that, this is going to be all cout. I'm going to just cout. Therefore, for the sake of time, I only use my existing cout command in case I don't think this one will allow me. So I type the first one for you. So I'm gonna just cout some information. I'm gonna say, I'm gonna clean up the screen and say my objects are going to be whatever I'm having right in here. This is going to just organize the screen for me or the console. And then again, pay attention, since I'm using OS Stream, all I have to do is just out. I do not need to say cout, just out is gonna help. I'm gonna one more time try because I don't really have more time. So I'm gonna see if this time it will allow me to, yep, it doesn't allow me because I'm on Zoom. Then out, I'm gonna say created on, then this one, I'm gonna just get it from, see that this is important. Since all of them are not from here, I have to address go get them from where? This is the get date. Get date is under the date class. Go get this information from there and bring them in here and cout them. That's what I'm talking about. And then I can say now out the like output the field, output like the color, output the radius. I can say output all of them. So I'm gonna just give it another in here. I'm gonna just give it another practice. C created, get data, get the field, get the color, and get the radius, all of them under the circle. That's why I say C. C stand for the circle. Super, super important to return. If you don't return your out, again, you are gonna get error. So make sure you do have a return for input. Make sure you do have a return for output. Now, just validate and make sure all the underlying greens are gone. If so, you've done a great job, no error. And the only thing that we have left in here is going to the main function and calling every single thing that we've created under the main function. Everyone following, kids? Everyone following? Okay, so I'm gonna go to my main. Kids, which kind of class I have to address in here? Somebody tell me. Which one? Which one I'm gonna address in here? I believe all I have to address in here is going to be circle. Why is that? Because I've already created connection between circle, between geometric option and dates. And if I only call circle, I'm gonna be safe enough to move forward. That will give me access to everything else. Therefore, I'm gonna say hash include, and again, this is a local header file. Therefore, I have to say only give me access to circle.h. And then everything else will be connected accordingly. Make sense? So it's time to just go ahead, say which information I'm gonna just include in my cout. So I'm gonna start with date class. Under the date class, I have date. So I have two options. Either I can go ahead, see in cout, or I can give it some certain information or hard coding. I'm gonna do, for example, today is for the month, today is February, and then it's 9 for the date, and then is 2026. So this is what I'm including right in here. That's my first constructor. Then under the circle class, I had like circle, I'm gonna give it the name C, and then I'm gonna give it more information. For circle, I need radius. Therefore, I'm gonna give it a number for the radius. And then I'm gonna give it the color, maybe red. And then I'm gonna give it for the Boolean one, either true or false. Now I'm gonna say true. And then for the date, I'm gonna give it the date. And that's it. Next, I'm gonna remember I had a print function, so I have to say c dot print Go. Why I say C dot print? Because every other information, remember, I included inside that circle class, so I can get all of them if I say C dot print. So this is a function call for that one. And then I have to say system pause. And then remember I need to return. So far, I can just quickly go ahead and give it a debug to make sure everything, look at here, I have everything properly done, no error. My green check mark is there. I can debug and I can see information only for one circle called my circle C. Give it a debug. See if you can get what I'm having. It takes a few minutes. It should give you only information for one circle at this point. Here we go. I'm gonna maximize. You can see this is my object info. I've got like the date as I defined, and I got the field radius and everything accordingly. Now I'm gonna customize it a little bit more. Did you get the same thing as I've done? Yeah? How many of you? Now, I'm gonna give it more circle just for the sake of more practice. For example, I'm gonna say, go ahead, create another circle for me. Circle, initially I said circle C. This time I'm gonna say create another circle 1. Again, I'm gonna give it some information. Initially it was 3 for the radius. I'm gonna say now make it maybe 4.5. This is my radius. Color was red. I'm gonna say pink. And then still I'm gonna have the through. And what else? Now I'm gonna date. For the date, I said February 9. I'm gonna say February 10 this time. So I'm gonna say 2/10/2026. And now I have to say print this one. So cout C1 dot print means go at this one. So this is one. I'm gonna create another one. And I'm going to call it C2. For C2, just again, for the sake of extra practice, instead of giving it information inside here, I'm going to give it information after debugging, means cin. I'm going to see in all the information for C2, and then I'm going to see out all the information for C2, cin, C out after compilation, and then end L, and I'm done. So I'm gonna one more time to explain. I already had only circle C. Now I've created 2 more circle. Let's debug again and see what would be the expectation on console. Everyone following still? Yes or no? Good. So at this point, I'm gonna have some of them means circle 1, C1 is already done. It's exactly the same thing. I created another pink circle for February 10, and now I can just add another circle as well. And for the next circle, did I have like C1? So I already created C1 print. Oh, I didn't print out C1, so I have to print out C1. Then it should be C out. So I have C1 print, then say C out print for the C1. This will give you option to print that one too. This is just optional. And then for the second one, I'm gonna C in, C out, and that's it. One more time if I debug. Now I'm gonna have like the information for that one too. So look at here now, I'm having like the pink one, and then I'm having the next information in here. So for example, I can say maybe for the next one, I can say 2.1, and then I can say blue, and then I can say maybe February 3, then say 3 February, say February 11 to 11, 2026. And then you can see your last circle is going to be your customized circle after compilation. Make sense? Everyone got the same result? Any question? So I'm gonna just close up the session right in here. Still, I'm available. Anyone who has question, feel free to let me know. I'll be happy to help you.